Hello, Anidorks. I have to be quiet. It's very late. I just wanted to throw a quick audio note up before this episode. Eddy had a new microphone. The microphone had what some would call a feature, I would call a bug. It had a knob on it that said echo that for some reason was turned all the way up by default, and we didn't notice until we went to edit the episode because reasons. I did my best to process it. I hope you don't mind. Also, if you're wondering what happened to my voice, I just went to a karaoke thing last night and blew it out, so I sound like some sort of radio announcer. It's very, or maybe not. Maybe I sound like someone who started smoking recently, but I promise I haven't started smoking. Next, this book is very dark. There's themes of like suicide and themes of sexual assault that we sort of were picking up from the book, and we were discussing those things as respectfully as possible. But if those are things that you do not want to hear about, feel free to skip these episodes, and we'll do our best to do some kind of speedrun recap in the minisode. So when you come back to us, you're not lost. They're great books, and we were so excited to talk about it. Anyway, I'm going to go to bed. It's Sunday. Good night, everyone.
In 1996, Scholastic began publishing Animorphs. Over the next 6 years, Katherine Applegate and her husband, Michael Grant, under the pseudonym K.A. Applegate, produced 54 main series books, several spin-offs, and inspired a TV series, graphic novels, and a cult following. We can't tell you where we live. We can't even tell you our last names. But we can tell you our thoughts and feelings on this series, book by book. I'm Miranda.
I'm Eddy.
And I'm Chris.
And we are the Anidorks.
These may be kids' books, but we discuss dark themes and mature content. There may also be some explicit language. Listener discretion is advised.
I want you to know I cut it from the episode, but I saved the entire story about the teen boy mannequin that you had to search for.
I sent it on Mike. It arrived. Did I tell you?
It's actually your replacement. It's the new hire at work.
I was going to leave it in the box and just deliver the box, but my coworkers wanted to build it. And then it was just nude in our office.
They don't come with. They should come with clothes, but they don't. Yeah,
they don't, or hair. And they were all. Do you know what my coworkers said? This thing. They're like, "That's not a teen boy mannequin. Look at how long the eyelashes are." And they
you ever
were just
seen a teen boy?
Right,
got gorgeous
exactly.
eyelashes.
They got the best eyelashes they'll have in their life. Yeah. And they waste them.
That's true.
They wasted them on me when I was a child.
Right.
And I was, and I couldn't. Imagine if I had those eyelashes at 24.
There was a boy
changed the world.
I did shows with in high school, and the girls all used to tell him he had beautiful eyelashes, and he was like, "I don't know what to do with this," and I'm like, "Make use of it, my lad."
Yeah,
like all the girls are like lining up to tell you how pretty your eyelashes are. He's like, "I'd rather they tell me I look cool," and I'm like, "Use what you got, buddy.
Use what you got, buddy."
This is while you were a child, Miranda. Also,
yeah, when I was a teen.
Yeah, we were all children in these scenarios.
Imagining that you actually sent my lad to people while you were a child.
I did.
Well, you see, my guy hadn't become
It's true. I was also just like very weird and didn't know. I only knew how to interact with males as friends, which really stymied my love life for a while. Yeah, I was like, well.
You called them my lad.
My lad, my boy. I would go with my guy.
Do you know what I still get at work is buddy. I'm buddy to older men.
Oh, hey, buddy. That's what we use with like kindergartners.
I say buddy to you sometimes when I'm a little frustrated. I'm like,
buddy.
Hey, bud.
Bud, yeah.
Or I say like bud, yeah.
Yeah, dogs and children. I'm usually like, hey, bud, what are you doing? Like, what are you eating? Like,
I'm just really excited to dive back in. Do you mind if I pivot into
No, let's do it. There's a lot to do.
We haven't talked in a minute.
That's
It's
true.
been a minute since the Anna Cool kids have assembled.
That's true.
We've all been in hibernation.
Shift in my chair.
Deep in our mole holes. Keeping warm and resting up to come back better and bushier tailed than
Mine's just a burrow. I just have a burrow. I don't.
It's just a burrow.
It's
Yeah,
different.
I tried to help with that, but you had some rocks in your yard and we couldn't get around them.
I tried to make a hobbit hole, but what I really struggled with was the leverage for the doorknob being in the center of the door. I found it really hard to open.
Yeah.
So eventually it just became a regular
you guys,
hole.
we have to change topics because I am just thinking about a joke that I don't want to make.
Okay.
That is, but I want you guys to make it for me.
Well, can you get us
You
there?
know what they
Can you
say
help?
about holes in the middle? I don't know.
No, I don't know. It's some. We're just gonna pass.
Yeah, we'll pass.
Okay.
It
Just gonna
happened.
pass on.
Chris, when we arrive in Bookland, will we be discussing what already happened in Book 17? Because I think that would be helpful.
We can do a short recap. I
like
think it'd probably be
customs.
appropriate for us. Why don't we do it just to
So
to get
basically,
ourselves
all that
going
happened is they went to Planet Hollywood. They saved a guy in a very impractical way that I don't think they could have done, and then who was jumping out of a building. They saved him from dying and from taking his own life, and then it turned out that his family was trying to have him committed to an insane asylum, and Rachel's mother is his attorney.
Yes, which gives us an in.
And-
it gives us,
He claims he's not crazy. There's a yerk in his brain.
but
Yeah.
we haven't gotten to that. In the
No,
book
we
yet.
have.
No, we have. At the end of chapter 5.
At the end of chapter 5,
To him yet though.
No, we haven't talked to him.
Right.
She comes home and she's like, yeah, he's my client. And he says he's not crazy. He's just got an alien in his brain. He even has a name. He calls him the Yerks.
Okay,
Miranda,
okay.
I think
There's
what I
there's
hear here is that Chris does not believe Edelman, and we do. We believe.
No, I am saying that Rachel's mother is not in a position to believe Edelman.
No, she doesn't seem to believe him.
Yeah, I'm
She is
saying that
representing him, though.
We have not confirmed the yerk. We have heard
We
the
have heard.
word
We have
yerk.
heard
There
word
is
of the
there
Yerk.
is an alleged yerk.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. And I only believe Edelman because his lawyer told me. That's the only reason that.
Well, of course.
Yeah.
And I mean, as juror number 3, you're doing an excellent job.
All correspondence about this matter should be going through my lawyer. It's actually really inappropriate for you to be talking about this
That's
with
what
me right
happened
now.
that's what happened with the last episode we recorded is all 3 of our lawyers recorded this amazing episode and then they got it struck from the record.
Yeah.
And it was, I thought that was going to be a great episode.
Yeah.
All
So
the
they
lawyers
decide they have to get to George Edelman, Edelweiss.
Edelman.
And they have
Edelman.
to get to the bottom of it themselves, and they find out where he's being kept. And
Which
Okay.
is the Robert J. Kirk mental health.
Well,
episode.
so we're going to read your little summary.
that's true.
right? We're gonna
I was
read-
referencing
okay, so let's do it.
But yeah.
You were, because I want to start the
Now,
timer.
can
now.
I just? This is fine. I'll do it quickly.
We're on the clock.
clock.
now.
I cannot promise the same level of excellence that we've become used to. I think all 3 of us.
Oh, from your
surely.
summaries?
Yeah.
Do not worry about it. Do not feel self-conscious. We do what we can with this podcast.
Got it.
That is our motto
Well, why
here.
don't you start?
We're gonna I would love to. Why does it just say Chris sucks? It just says chapter
What did I
6
just
Chris
say?
sucks.
That seems
Okay,
like a
well-
level up in writing from what I can tell.
Okay. I'm gonna read through it. Chapter 6, the gang breaks into the Robert J. Kirk mental health facility. Their mission? Find George Edelman and see what, if anything, he knows about the Yerk invasion. Their plan is to morph into seagulls and fly into a truck delivering groceries. Once inside, they'll demorph, then morph into cockroaches hiding inside a crate of food until they are transported inside the facility. Only Rachel, Marco, and Jake will go on this mission. The 3 of them morph into seagulls while Tobias watches.
What
Tobias
is
watches.
happening?
I'm incredibly
Chris
unpracticed.
needs their hanky.
Yeah, that is what I had, like a dripper, and I was like, this is so gross. Rachel makes a risky move as they board the truck while it's being unloaded, rushing the 3 of them a bit. Everything seems fine once they're on board, however. That is until one of them delivery men says that he thought he saw some birds fly over their heads into the truck.
This chapter has a lot of nut jokes. It's like, they're nuts, and nuts don't like to be called nuts. And I'm like, well, peanuts are legumes, so you're actually just making a mistake.
You'd be nuts to want to be called a nut.
Right, it's one of the things they say. And they all think it's the height of hilarity until Jake does it. And that just goes to show, if you have a role as the straight man, you don't try to be the funny man, okay?
It's true, unless it's comedic in its own right, at which point we're into some kind of meta
But he's only in level 1 improv. He can't be making these decisions on his own.
So we don't think he has a career
above a yes and
in this.
No. He has his smile's too slow. His smile,
his comedic timing on the smile is too slow.
I have always heard that if you just keep going to the improv classes, eventually you will become funny. Is that not the case?
It could be true. I stopped going, so I will say.
It's a Ponzi scheme, and I think we all know that at this point.
Oh, I thought it was a pyramid scheme, but that was my cheerleading class. So they do a cute little thing where Marco's like, the nut house, it's where I always thought I'd end up. And Rachel's like, I was going to make the same joke, so we made a cute little face at each other. And then she makes another nut joke, and he not a sexual nut joke, just to be clear.
Well, that slang didn't exactly exist at the
not
time,
really.
I think.
And then they do a little low five behind the back, which it's a discreet low five behind the back. I really like this Marco-Rachel interaction here.
Yeah, so do I.
And
it's very cute.
There's also a very sweet Axe and Tobias interaction where Axe asks a very genuine questions like, what are willies? And Tobias gives a very clear factual explanation. And I'm like, this is what makes them shorms. This is what, you know what I mean? He didn't make a joke. He didn't try to make a thing out of it. He just told him.
He just explained
what the willies were.
Yeah.
Big uncle-nephew energy.
Yeah.
Even though neither of them know that. Do we think that that Marco could unseat Cassie as Rachel's best friend? Or will
no, it's a different kind of friendship,
I agree.
Right? Because the Rachel Cassie thing is the emotional core best friend. But the Rachel Marco thing is the we play off each other really well. We do really good bits.
They'll have a podcast together one day.
Yeah,
right.
They're gonna have a podcast.
Right. But I can't trust either of you. That's that's the thing.
Yeah.
That's why you're not my Cassie.
You always know that they're waiting for their next opportunity to make a joke.
Yeah.
When Jake goes to make that joke that totally bombs, he says, he gets excited ahead of making the joke. He cuts in his we have to pay attention, otherwise we'll get hurt. And he said, and then he's like, oh, I'm going to make a joke. He grinned in anticipation, says, we'd have to be nuts to get careless. No one laughed, the book says. And then he says, I say, we'd have to be nuts.
No. I think it's I say we have to
don't laugh.
Nuts. Yeah.
You're right.
Fine.
I missed the Italian.
Don't laugh. I don't care.
He had just said we need to put a limit on the nut jokes.
That I say, imagine him doing a British accent. That's what would take his improv to the next level. I say.
He also says every time we start to take something for granted, we end up getting hammered. Hammer, a way you can open a nut.
Yeah. Has nothing to do with granted, though, so it's a weak joke. If it meant every time we take something for granted, I slate us for another coffin down at the
Is this growth for Jake, though? Because as far as we know, he grinned in anticipation. One, he knows that he has to anticipate what he's going to grin for, right?
Yeah.
I feel like
he grinned. It wasn't even so much anticipation as that he knew if he did it after, it would take so long.
No, that's what screwed up the timing. You're right. You guys are right. He grinned so slowly the time had passed for the joke.
Yeah.
Oh, so you think an hour happens there?
An hour happens there. And then he comes in, and they're already seagulls in the truck.
That's why Rachel's like, we got to go now because he's wasted so much time on his smile. Yeah. And then they're like, that was kind of dumb, Rachel. And she's like, fuck you. She doesn't say fuck you, but she's kind of mad.
Yeah.
Oh, man. The last thing I'll say about this chapter is the dialogue of the truck driver reminds me of that guy from Futurama who pluralizes all the wrong things and singleizes all the other things. The guy's like, hey, you guys want to move that thing? It's so hard for me to do. I can't do it.
It's very funny.
We ready for chapter 7?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Let's do it. All right, Miranda, you want to read this one?
Sure. Chapter 7. Rachel, Marco, and Jake morph into cockroaches and hide themselves inside of a container of bananas, just as it's about to be unloaded off the truck. Let's do it, Rachel thought speaks, falling into the bananas. I hate when she says that, Marco groans. Anytime Rachel says, let's do it, in that insane, suicidal rock and roll way of hers, disaster can't be far away.
That was a wild read. I'm glad we have that on record. That's a solid take.
Did you like my AI generated bananas?
Yes. Yeah.
Your AI generated bananas? You put pictures in your notes?
Bananas.
Oh, yeah. These bananas,
it's like when you're at the checkout, it's it's like, please put your bananas in the bag.
Yeah. This was an interesting chapter. This is when they're going to morph into the cockroaches in the truck, right?
Yeah.
So they've flown onto the truck as gulls.
Birds.
Now, as seagulls. They make it in there at the end of chapter 6. And then in chapter 7, the trick is we're going to morph out and we're going to morph to cockroaches, which means we have to go through our human form, which actually had to do with why we selected who we selected for this trip. Like Tobias not having a human form, the Andalite being a lot bigger than everybody else. That's why we took our specific subset. And there was a coin flip involved.
Why Cassie and Marco were just a matter of coin flip. But I kind of think if they had to do fast morphing, shouldn't you always bring Cassie for that?
I would agree, but she's going to morph faster than everybody else anyway. So, like, how much does it really buy you? Because she's faster than the other two people who go. This is like a very cute scene to me.
Please.
Just like the human Tetris that's going on where they morph and they wind up like very tangled together because it's like when they morph out, things don't happen in a logical order. They don't just become standing up humans. They're like squished into a small truck and it
does kind of sound like they tried to all do it at once.
It does.
Like they did not say, okay, Rachel, you first. Like, they just all start morphing, and suddenly Marco's, like, kneeing Rachel.
Yeah.
And, like...
Rachel's concerned that she's feeling the morph, and then she's like, wait, it's suspiciously similar to, like, a knee being pressed into my back. Jake, is your knee pressed into my back?
It's that cousin rivalry.
Yeah.
He's going to take her out here. I really find that self-awareness and that fear just so beautifully telling of, like, what Rachel's clocking in terms of the world ending. Like, I don't know. There's something about like that fear is both elemental and actually like, I don't know that a lot of people could put it into words that that's the fear. Like, it just feels like a really natural reaction. I'm really glad she said it.
She feels very aware of her body.
Yeah.
In a way that, like, I know Cassie is not supposedly, she is, but she's aware of her body when morphing because she's an Estrina or whatever. But as someone who did gymnastics and, like, I always felt very, like, aware of how my body was, like, positioned because it's something you have to pay a lot of attention to in gymnastics while moving very fast through the air. So, like, sometimes. So, like, I don't know. I liked that she's the one who is in touch with the idea of what her body should and shouldn't be feeling or doing. You know,
she's also just like, it always feels like Rachel's body is the one under attack. So like she kind of has to be embodied in that way. Like, one, she's developed that awareness because she's always under attack, but also it feels like the books put her in that position where horrible things happen to her and she's threatened by things.
Absolutely. You know? And yet this is like one where it's like, because the morphing is not a given, right? Like, I think if like, you know, people skateboard and throw themselves down a flight of stairs and then they hurt themselves and they're like, this could hurt what I'm about to do. But you do that stuff and you accept that that's like the risk you're engaged with. Morphing is something they've been given that, as far as we understand, is exhausting, but it's not like painful in any way. Like, all these horrifying things are happening, but they don't feel it. They feel it, but they don't feel pain.
Yeah, they say they specifically don't feel the pain of it, and it's weird, but it's not.
But there's something about the idea that something you would take for granted, something you rely on, suddenly being painful feels like a really mature thought. And I feel like as we're all aging and we're all hitting our like Like, and I don't know. Yeah. I'm not saying it's like K.A. versus Rachel's voice or something, but there's a self-awareness there that just really resonated for me as a 33-year-old.
Yeah, I picked up my chair because it was on a cord, and I didn't bend my knees, but I also didn't do proper deadlift form, and my lower back hurt for like 2 days. Like,
yeah, and
not badly, but like I could tell that I had done it.
Yeah, and I something so simple that I do like every day. This was a few years ago now, but it was the first time I had one of these like aging pains. I had taken a shower and I was like drying the back of my head with the towel. And suddenly that motion of my hands behind my head, I tore something in my back and I couldn't get it. I had to lay in bed for like 2 or 3 days.
Oh, wow.
And I wasn't even doing anything extreme. I was just drying myself up.
I didn't realize you were that old. That's incredible.
That can also
only time this has happened to me.
That can be dependent on like what sports you do too, because I know a lot of swimmers will like just tear their rotator cuff on a moment's notice because they were preparing themselves all their life to tear their rotator cuff.
Mm-hmm. Yeah,
that's a really good point. Something else I just want to hit, because I think it's fascinating from a sci-fi standpoint, is just we get a recap of the new rules of morphing and Z-space that we got in Rachel's last book. Well, actually, Marco's book initially and then Rachel's book, but we got sort of this idea of our morphs push our mass out into Z-space, and then like we morph back into a human, and our animal morph is probably somewhere out there because apparently we can be allergic to them.
Yeah.
So like,
I was just having this, we were just talking about it last episode. I was just editing it, and it's like, I was like, is the DNA stored in Z-space, or is the whole animal stored in Z-space?
Like a mass.
Or is it like,
I don't know. There's no telling.
It's not the big wad of guts when Rachel mentions this that disgusts me. It's that her hair is just floating there. Like, what's even
guts
tethering
and hair and stuff?
Yeah.
I mean, I assume it's attached to like her skin, but like, I don't know. Have you
the way she described it, it sounds like it's just floating there loosely, though. It's the picture that I get.
And I see what you're saying. It's like a blob.
Yeah. Yeah.
Is there a quote you want to read from the, like...
I assume you're talking about, according to Axe, all the excess mass gets pushed into zero space where it sort of hangs like a big wad of guts and hair and stuff.
Yeah. It's just like a deflated balloon.
The more disturbing thing, and I don't want to go into it too much, the more disturbing thing to think about are the teeth, if we're being honest.
Yeah.
So, like, let's just move on.
We'll save that for a whole Minnesota.
We'll save that for...
It is a good morph. It's a nice cockroach morph, and then they realize that they're in bananas. Chapter 8?
Chapter 8. Eddie, you want to read this one?
Yeah. Chapter 8. Rachel, Marco, and Jake find themselves pursued by a tarantula through a gooey Freudian hellscape of bananas.
Yeah.
I'm so glad that you caught that thread too.
Oh, it was all over my notes in the book.
Yes.
The
tarantula nearly devours Rachel until Tobias intervenes, rescuing her. The three make it inside the facility. So this is basically all one big chase sequence with the
truck driver and the cook for some reason are transporting bananas from the truck to the kitchen.
Well, the cook knows where it has to go. And it's faster if you work together.
I'm impressed that the cook is lifting...
That the union would allow.
Yes, exactly. Precisely. But so, like, this, for a while, like, we're in this weird limbo where we're just surrounded by phallic bananas. The way the bananas are described is an
all gently curved
series of curves.
Yes.
It's like, and it sounds insanely abstract when you're reading the book until they tell you they're in a crate of bananas. They're just talking about all these like Euclidean or non-Euclidean curves and just all these tapers and all these like
sweet smell. There's a sweet smell in the crate.
There's a sweet smell. Yeah. And it's
and then they're like, good thing that they spray these down with pesticides because sometimes tarantulas hang out in bananas.
And then Marco correctly identifies, aren't we pests in this situation?
Wouldn't we feel poison if there was poison? And it's like, I feel fine. And then there's a tarantula.
What we get here, it was curved and pitched. This is what they fall on. Then Rachel is standing on something almost cylindrical, except that it was also curved. And pressed in, right beside this curved cylinder was another, each maybe 10 times my own body length. And wait, Others all around, in addition to being cylindrical and curved, now I could see that they were tapered down to a blunt tip. And this goes on and on. It is the entire chapter.
It's rough.
Yeah.
Just to pull us out of it for 1 second, I did apparently have like an attack of being me when they saw the tarantula, because I looked this up, I guess, because I found it saved in my notes. I wrote, this is so Rachel says the tarantula sitting atop the bananas, it was, no exaggeration, as big as an elephant to me. And I wrote, this is actually probably downplaying, if anything. In terms of body length, the tarantula is 2 to 3 times the size of an American cockroach, which pans out for height comparisons to an elephant for a human. But when considering the sprawl of their legs, it can be up to 6 times the size of the length of a cockroach. And that's to say nothing of the height comparison when you consider the flatness of the roach to the body of the spider. So I guess I had feelings about that when it happened.
It's a lot bigger than an elephant?
It would be, it would be, in terms of like sprawlingness, it's like, it would feel probably at least twice the size of an elephant to a cockroach.
I've been to a monster car rally. I feel like I know what it is.
Have you really?
Okay.
Yeah.
Wow.
I mean, I've been to a destruction derby.
But it does. It then just continues. They run and run from this tarantula over lots and lots of more bananas.
Now, Miranda,
it says
the bananas,
monstrous bananas, each as big as a piece of a concrete sewer pipe.
Yeah.
Miranda, did we write the same exact phrase?
Freud would have a field day with this?
Did we both write? I wrote exactly the phrase Freud would have a field day with.
Here's the thing. I wrote that the first time I did my notes. Also, it was my 1-sentence summary. So I may have primed you for that.
Maybe that's, but also a month has passed.
That's true.
So I think,
I just want to say though, we get all of this about the bananas. I understand why you say that about the scene being very Freudian, but it's not like at any point the bananas start exploding or gooing.
Any sort of goo all over. No, it's not like we get squish. A banana exploded under the impact of the giant shoe. It gushed banana goo, sweet and sticky, all over us.
Yeah.
Wow, Eddy, I've never heard you so quickly refuted. I mean, I know you were teeing it up, but I like this world where I've just totally forgotten about the book.
I know sometimes a banana is just a banana, but
sometimes it's a gushing shooting.
In a Rachel book,
sweet and sticky.
Is anything ever just what it seems?
Dude, no, and that's the thing. I mean, we're gonna get to that in later chapters. There's just a lot to the layers of experience with Rachel. I actually have a short diatribe-ish thing that I would like to share with you guys. I don't know
at this moment.
Maybe we want to talk about it later. Maybe we want to talk about it in the dream sequence. Can we put a pin in this and we'll talk about it in the dream sequence? Yeah, absolutely. Okay. Thank you.
Is there anything else?
I'll remember.
I kept my grip on a banana.
I think so. It's not the sexual analysis or the Freudian analysis or whatever, but I just really liked, there's this thing at the end of the chapter that's like the cook drops the bananas with the tarantulas in it. It's like, and the truck driver says, "Hey, what are you doing to my bananas?" And I was like, that's the wrong thing to say. Like, they're not your bananas. You're delivering the cook is allowed to do whatever he wants with those bananas.
That's true. And you know what? We didn't even talk about the fact that we were playing Spider Stomp here, Chuck E. Cheese classic Spider Stomp, and that's how the banana ends up getting smushed.
People are slipping on bananas at rates higher than I've seen ever in my life.
This is actually, they're on a Mario Kart course right now. This is how this happens.
Yeah. Donkey Kong is watching and just like, ooh, put me in.
I also think, so I know you're putting a pin in this, Chris, but because we're going to talk about that dream sequence, I just didn't occur to me while I was reading it. I think it's worth it to flag that the tarantula also pins Rachel down here and is about to tear her apart.
Yep.
Yes.
That feels worth it just to point that out.
No, that's you're totally right.
I don't know how much of a point this is, but the fact that it's probably a female tarantula is
definitely Aphrodite. I mean,
and how things have
not Aphrodite, arachnid.
And
Miranda. Arachnid. Yeah.
The books choose to gender something later that didn't need to be gendered, and this is a case where it could be helpful to point that out, but it's not said, So
yes, for the audience at home, I was aggressively tapping my nose when Eddy said that because I put a quote in the notes with my own emphasis on certain things to be like, oh, that was interesting. Chapter 9.
Yep.
All right, let's do it. I'll read this one. All right, Rachel, Marco, and Jacob made it inside the facility. Remember, it's the
Robert J. Kennedy.
Thank you. Yes, sanatorium. Meanwhile, Cassie and Axe have morphed into birds themselves and report that while we were having our banana dream, they've spotted George Edelman on the second floor. Rachel, Jake, and Marco climb through the walls as cockroaches to the next floor, exiting into the bathroom adjacent to where Edelman is watching television. Rachel will be the one to speak to Edelman. After all, she saved his life. Another patient enters the bathroom just as Rachel is demorphing. She asks him, it's so sobering to read it this bluntly. She asks him to bring George Edelman to her. The man nods, but before he leaves, he asks if Rachel is real. That's, nah, she says, just a figment of your imagination. And he says, I'll go get Edelman.
Oh, I'll go get it. I'll get George.
do you, maybe we talked about this too, but do you two remember... You didn't know, we did talk about this. You did not watch Good Burger as kids, right?
Not really, no.
I saw it as an adult.
I saw it,
barely remember it. Yeah.
So I remember the version of this scene that was in the episode that they drew from this when they go in the mental health facility. And the ending of Good Burger also ends with the same kind of zaniness and like nuts and crazy jokes. I feel like there was a visual language for how they always portrayed like these like mental health, these sanatoriums, these mental health facilities.
Very much so.
And like the kinds of characters, there were almost like a specific subset of archetypes, like the straitjackets and things like that.
Yep.
And wow, like it was just so pervasive the way that we
It really was.
visualized
I mean, if you think about like
about 12 Monkeys.
Yeah, I think 12 Monkeys had a lot to do with it because I was going to say that Futurama episode, but that Futurama episode is heavily based on 12 Monkeys. So
like that whole scene where he's going around and introducing all the people who have the various ailments. Like it's like I think that was so pervasive and successful at what it did that like.
But the straitjackets and the padded rooms, I feel like were like two really really big things.
And people tried to break out of the straitjackets.
Even before that, and I'm not an expert, but even before that, in Peter Gabriel songs, like from the 80s, there is a lot of focus on the idea that you're fit to be tied. Like, there's a lot of songs where he's like, I'm in this facility, I'm drugged up, I'm doped up to the high heavens, I don't even remember who I am. Like, he wrote multiple songs about
One Flew Over the Cuckoo's Nest is older, and it's probably also, so like that's probably a lot. Yep. And it was a book first, and then an extremely successful movie and all that.
And I'm sure there was something just before that, but we're not old enough to know.
And so that's where it ends. That's where
the
One Flew Over the Cuckoo's Nest, that's where we end it.
There's a beautiful simile in this chapter. A nail head protruded in front of me, they're cockroaches inside a wall, in front of me and looked about as tall as a tall woman.
Tell me what that means. What does...
Could not handle it.
5'8" to 5'11"? But like, so why not just go with as tall as an average man? Like...
Could not handle it. You know what?
Was it a feminine nail? I don't understand.
We're taking it back. Taking back carpentry for women.
So she wrote these books so quickly, I'm sure. But back in chapter 7, she also said something bananas. It was, no pun intended, it was, we went from being 3 birds, each smaller than a chicken, to being 3 kids. Like, and I was like, you compared a bird to a bird. I really wish she had just written it.
People had more experience with.
Yeah.
But
I really wish that she had said to being 3 kids, each smaller than a slightly larger
child. We went from being 3 birds smaller than chickens to 3 kids smaller than a high schooler.
Exactly right. But now that we're all the way in chapter 9, I'm thinking that she was just sort of getting it
just
done,
rushing.
And that's how her brain was just making it happen.
To write an entire story or book using that kind of comparison.
It reminds me of back in the day, like minivans being the unit of measurement. It was like about 3 school buses long.
Yes, yeah. Oh my God, the truck ship could have its like intake scoops could have like done a school bus or whatever.
Something like that,
No, you know what? There is something to it, though. School buses, minivans,
There's
football
something
fields.
to that.
Is like
this is a bit different.
No, I know.
It's a little different.
Saying taller.
Some children grow up around chickens, Chris.
It's true.
The only thing I can think is that she's woman-centric.
Yeah.
That's the thing that we're learning from this, is it's not an average man, it's a tall woman. Or a tall, and not a tall man. I don't know what a tall woman is in this situation.
Like I said, I mean, like, there are women over 6 feet tall, but generally 5'8" and up is considered tall for a woman.
What
but...
what is
Madame Dimitrescu? She's about 12 feet tall.
Yeah. So let's go with that. That's the canonical height.
I'm being told she may be 9'6". I may be exaggerating.
Thank you, James, for the fact.
Wait, yeah, Miranda, I thought you were actually getting something through on your head.
No, I'm getting.
Hold on, I'm being told.
I'm getting an update.
9'6". The show that Edelman's watching is Gilligan's Island.
Oh yeah,
which Axe knows
love
about
Gilligan's Island. Yeah,
everybody should know.
knows about that for some reason. Yeah,
it was
just
in
sit
his
right back and you'll hear
encyclopedia.
a tale.
Remember, he had that
fateful trip.
encyclopedia back in book. Was it 8?
It was. They explained the literary continuity from Robinson Crusoe to Gilligan's Island. Like, doesn't Robinson Crusoe get like trapped on an island at some point in that whole thing?
Robinson Crusoe?
That's what I meant.
Okay.
What did I say?
Caruso.
David Caruso.
David Caruso. That was
Wait, what is it actually? What should I say?
Crusoe.
Crusoe.
Yeah,
I did add a syllable. You're right. Yep.
That's I believe. Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay,
Did he get stuck in an island, or was that the Swiss Family Robinson? I was like, there's too many.
I don't really know. I'm not gonna.
We got to get out of this chapter.
Right,
can I ask a quick question though?
Sure.
So the moment that they are deciding who's going to speak to Edelman, the reason that they're not worried about a child suddenly appearing in the bathroom is because no one's going to believe these people anyway.
Yeah.
It's very mean.
Yeah.
It's mean. It's sad.
They did it earlier too with the like, what if he saw you morphing? And it's like he just threw himself off a building. People are gonna not listen to him. It's like
it's so dark.
Yes.
It's just like it's so not respectful.
Yeah.
It's so rude. Like,
and Rachel will wrestle with. She'll actually say at least once, but maybe more than that. Like, I wish I had just not saved him because it's all kind of.
She says that later, and I don't know why she said it.
there's
I'm
a
mad
lot
at
of
her
real
about it.
I'm like,
but it is how
feelings.
people talked about these things in the
That's
90s. True. Yeah. So
we did not have there was not a lot of at least televised or broadcast sympathy for people who had problems.
Yeah. The nail is tall as a tall woman.
But also, if a strange girl appeared and told me that she was a figment of my imagination, I'd take her at her word. Or because if she's lying, it's still none of my business. Like, you know what I mean? Like, it's still none of my business.
I don't know. If they're in the place I would consider my bathroom, I'm going to be like, excuse you.
It's like a public bathroom, though. It's like a shared bathroom. It's not like she's in my personal bathroom.
Now, Chris, what if they appear and for some reason, they have a high-end bidet with them and they're actually mid-process of replacing...
If they're installing it, they're maintenance man. That's different.
Then that's okay.
I'm sorry, a maintenance person.
If Rachel's
a tall
installing
woman.
a bidet, who's the tall woman? The nail is the tall woman. Rachel's going to be not that
She's
tall,
a tall
right?
girl, but she's about as tall as a small boy. Like
tall enough to pass as a shoeless lawyer, as we're about to learn in chapter 10.
That's that could be an episode title, Tall Enough to Pass as a Shoeless Lawyer.
As a shoeless lawyer.
Chapter 10, George Edelman joins Rachel in the bathroom. She tells him that she is a lawyer helping with his court case. George is startled. How'd she appear here? Why was she meeting him in the bathroom of all places? Why is she barefoot? And isn't she a little young to be a lawyer? She tells him that she's actually 25. She just eats the right foods and always wears sunscreen. Good advice. Rachel asks why George tried to kill himself. Because of the yerk in his head, George responds. She asks what a yerk is, promising not to laugh at whatever he says. And George begins to tell her. Almost immediately, he begins spasming, speaking in yerkish. When George recovers, he tells Rachel that the yerk inside of his head has gone mad. Rachel asks how the yerk could have possibly survived this long without Kandrona. George is confused how she could know of Kandrona. He asks her if she is an Andalite, and she lies, saying that she is. George tells her that after the Andalites destroyed the Kandrona in the EGS tower, the Yeerks discovered that they could survive without Kandrona if they ate a certain human food. But that very human food also proved to be terribly addictive, slowly driving the Yeerks mad. That food is oatmeal. Instant oatmeal. Specifically, the maple ginger flavor. Rachel asks if there's anything she can do for George before she leaves. Well, he says, there's nothing anyone can do about the Yeerk. That creature will live as long as George does. But during the moments that George is in control, he just wishes that he did not have to spend those moments trapped in the hospital, that he could be free.
I had a lot of feelings. First of all, I always aim to look like a very youthful 25-year-old with no shoes. Yeah. That is my goal. Like she says, that's what she's going for. That's my goal. But I don't know. I don't feel like they've adequately explained to me now that he's had the instant maple ginger oatmeal, he can never die. That doesn't feel adequately explained to me.
No. So the Yeerk, so this is my understanding, and maybe I'm missing what's missing from it, but my understanding is the maple ginger thing is a drug that takes over the same stuff as the Kandrona. So it actually energizes the Yeerk. As long as he keeps eating it and the Yeerk is incentivized to eat it, it rots part of their brainstem. That's what we learn later.
Part of the Yeerk brains,
it fucks them up and suddenly they go insane and then they don't pursue anything other the balloons. I triggered the balloon effect in my Zoom.
At a kind of inappropriate moment. It destroys really and rapes that balloon.
But so this drug though basically makes them want it over all else. In theory the Yeerk could go back to Kandrona, but they don't want to, and they're permanently changed to receive the maple ginger, which means they're pursuing that, which is highly attainable for a human controller to do.
But if he's here, how is he going to make sure that he gets it? They presumably feed them a regimented diet.
That's a great point. That part's a little bit hand-woven
not
away.
to talk too much, but it seems implied later that people who are out there free with no access to anything are still the Yeerk is just going to continue to live as long as their human lives. I
will say this. So I'm going to be Miranda on today's episode and give the sort of hand-wavy. I'm gonna do the sci-fi here.
Okay.
Maybe what is ever in this specific maple ginger thing is also in other common foods, and we just haven't zeroed in on what it is.
Yeah.
So maybe
they're getting just enough through something else.
I don't know.
It doesn't seem like it makes a ton of sense.
But... No, I agree, and I think where I start to lose it especially is if you're in a position. So if a human host has enough time, because George actually seems for most of this conversation, he's in control. It actually reads as a fairly brief moment where he loses control.
And it's when he's trying to tell her about it. The Yeerk tries to stop him from telling her about it.
And I feel like the Yeerk has little enough control that the human should at least even be able to... I feel like there are scenarios or situations that the human within that time could put themselves in that... Even if the Yeerk regained control for a moment and that human was not consuming oatmeal or receiving Kandrona, that they should be able to, they act like it's impossible to kill the Yeerk.
That's what I'm saying.
That's the thing, is they talk about it like it's actually impossible to kill the Yeerk.
Maybe something in it fuses it to their brain and it's now feeding off of them? I don't know.
It could, I don't know. Maybe it allows, maybe it actually takes it a step further and they don't need to keep pursuing it turns them into kind of zombies of a kind or whatever.
Yeah.
But lots of good moments in this chapter.
It's a good chapter. Hope, dread, amazement. Yeah.
It's really, really devastating.
Yeah.
It's super sad. And there's a soberness with which George is talking to, this is something that I feel like the 90s fetishized a lot, and maybe the 80s and other stuff too. But the idea that the crazy were the same kind of vibe.
Yeah.
And this though, because we know the happenings that are going on, it's extra hard to watch him be so calm and accepting of the fact that he probably, like, he has tried to end his life, and he failed because of Rachel, and the amount of acceptance that he holds in this moment that his life isn't much more impressive than this is eerie. And it's unsettling. It's really dark. I don't know why this over other stuff for me is dark. I know they literally tear people limb from limbs, but this to me is like existential in a way that just is. And
it's like wishing that he's never going to have control long enough to convince people he's sane. And so he's going to be stuck here. And so in the moments that he does have control, he's never going to get to do any of the things that he would want to do anyway. Like, it's like, yeah, I guess it's great that I don't have to serve the Yeerks anymore, but like, my existence hasn't really improved all that much.
Yeah. And you know what? It's kind of interesting. It sort of seems like maybe the Yeerks have not infiltrated this hospital.
Yeah. So I was thinking about that, and I was thinking that maybe I don't know about that. Let's put a pin in that.
Okay.
Because I was thinking about it, and I had a thought about it, and I can't remember what it is.
Yeah.
It was about like the fact that like this would be a place where people could end up who were Yeerked, but in weird situations. And then I was like, yeah, why aren't they interested?
But
it also kind of makes sense.
It's kind of like, it's a place where humans, as long as there's a legitimized reason, could be held against their will, which in theory would be a perfect opportunity to Yeerk people.
Yeah.
Kind of like a prison or...
But you could never... Yeah. It would be hard to convince the world that you'd, like, rehabilitated them depending on what they were in.
Yo, dude, that's actually a really good plot
line,
like, actually, like, if it could be said that they could dominate whatever being that if you had imbalances or whatever, that's insane. Well, like, imagine if, like, that was what happens. Like, mental health issues went away because of your control.
As screwed up as it is, like, it could be offered almost as, like, this is, like, a horrible thing that these...
A treatment.
Like, you might become like a voluntary controller.
The ice stick, the lobotomy.
Yes, exactly. The lobotomy thing. Yeah, exactly. Which did nothing good for anybody, ever.
Yeah.
It was a horrible time in mental health history.
There is something very... uneasy. It was uneasy for me to read how bluntly Rachel goes from making the joke, thank you, I'm 25, but I work out, I eat the right foods, and I always wear sunscreen, Mr. Edelman. And then she just says, and the book says, I said bluntly before he could ask me any more questions, why did you try to kill yourself? And at first I was like, Rachel needs to learn to pivot, which is true, but there's something so accurate to how a 12-year-old would ask that sort of question, I think.
Yeah. And also, she knows she's got limited time.
Right.
So she's like, I have to just get to the point. And also, she clearly doesn't understand why someone would ever do such a thing.
Yes.
So she doesn't know she needs to be sensitive about, like, it's like not what brought you here, how were you feeling, why'd you do that?
Yeah. Like, it's not even just that she's trying to understand in the Animorphs context of a Yeerked person, but also why a human being would do that.
Well, and that, like... That plays into... So the thing that I had written was I started watching Xena Warrior Princess, and as research, like some friends of mine were like, oh, like you guys are reading this book, like it comes up, and I was like, is it worth watching? And they were like, oh, yeah. And I started watching it, and it's really incredible for a lot of reasons, but the story of Xena grafts onto Rachel in a really interesting way. Xena was a warlord who like led armies to destroy all these, like to gain power and whatever. And at some point she has a change of heart, and then she starts recklessly throwing her life into danger for ethical reasons, for like good reasons. So she's like, I have to make the world a better place. I have to like use my talents, which are killing people, to make the world better. And she ends up like going all around and doing that. And the show is incredible because it was made in a time, but it's very sapphic coded. It's very, it's got these like queer undertones, but the thing that really hits me is this like that starting point of like having been wrong in the past. Like I'm wondering what that sin is for Rachel, who's like kind of too young. Like she doesn't have that, and yet she is throwing herself recklessly at these causes. And there's such a devastating parallel there because it's like is that just like, are we to literally receive that as socialization or some sort of guilt that's passed on to her by virtue of being a part of a patriarchal, toxic world? And like, is that why? I don't know. Like, there's just and again, go ahead.
Like, they borrowed a behavioral characterization without the origin that was in the, possibly in this case, the original media.
And so it leads me to insane conclusions.
If I had
or not insane, but intense.
If I had to graft a new origin onto Rachel's, I would say that initially she was using this as an outlet for her misplaced rage at things in her life, like her parents' divorce, things like that. And she is so uncomfortable with the fact that that used to sort of be her motivating factor, was just that she wanted to smash things, that she is now like confronting the fact that she has to do good for good's sake and not just for break things. If I had to come up with a reason.
There's so many things that the books give her as reason to smash.
Yeah.
There's so many moments of power dynamic and control and just bizarreness and like adults being awful and like, I don't know. There's so many things that we talked about throughout this series that, like we were just saying a moment ago, are always happening to Rachel. Are always happening at Rachel.
I kind of feel like, I don't know if this would have been adequate, but I feel like there was a little bit, they tried to do a solve-all in book 2 with Melissa with the dead eyes. And her, I'm doing this for all the children of, there was a moment where we had all those YI fights.
Yeah, it was her YI fight was like for children separated from their parents.
And I think they maybe either tried to answer that too quickly for these characters because, you know, the characterizations continue and they're kind of still being shaped even at this point.
Yeah.
But also, I feel like I kind of wish they had brought Melissa along a little bit further because we really don't hear about her almost ever again, at least so far.
Maybe we will.
I hope so.
Shall we chapter 11? Whose is it?
Mine, I think.
Okay.
And can I ask a quick question? Do we think George Edelman's invited to the next season of Animorphs Survivor?
Yes. Oh, definitely. Okay. Yeah, definitely. Yeah, we would love to have him. Yeah,
I think that was his audition tape. I think he's good.
I think that was. Oh, and I did look it up just to be clear. I think the idea is that they're a zombie. Like, I think we hit the nail on the head a second ago.
Okay.
That they no longer need Kandrona, but are too
sort of strung out. Yeah.
Yeah, too strung out, and they're perma-strung out. So nobody knows to get the yerk out of their head, so they're likely to be cursed with this thing.
Okay.
And they don't die. Apparently they just get their nutrients some other way.
Okay.
All right.
Chapter 11. War crime debate. Now that we have a super secret weapon with which to fuck up those Yerky boys, the gang meets in Cassie's barn to ask the question, should we use it? Tobias isn't so sure. When he hears of the effects of the maple ginger instant oatmeal, he associates it with drug addiction. That association makes him uncomfortable. Marco and Rachel disagree. This is the Yerks they're all talking about, after all. They invaded Earth, not the other way around. Plus, Marco says it's freaking oatmeal they're talking about, not Oxycontin. Axe points out that the hosts, the infested humans, would still have to live with the Yerks inside of their heads forever, just as is happening with George Edelman. Are the Animorphs really comfortable leaving these individuals without hope? To which Jake replies that all of humanity will be without hope if they lose the war against the Yerks. Axe tells the group that he, as an Andalite, is very familiar with the temptation to sink to the level of your enemy. He also understands you cannot win a war without being ruthless. The question is one of balance. How far are the Animorphs willing to go before they risk losing who they were to begin with? Even Cassie isn't sure what's right, and this frightens Rachel. She's used to Cassie being a moral counterbalance to her tendency to be ruthless. There's no good answer. In the end, the Animorphs decide that the Yerks will not compromise, and so they, the Animorphs, will have to win this war. Where do we find a bunch of Yerks sitting down to eat, Marco asks. Rachel already knows where this is headed. The Yerk pool.
Just a real quick aside before we get into the heavy stuff. Marco says we have green kryptonite here, and I did a little looking around, little poking around. That is regular kryptonite?
Yeah. The regular kryptonite is also green. It's just green.
It's not special kryptonite.
It's not special, it's just green.
There's only... I did find evidence of a type of kryptonite that could cause paranoid delusions or hallucinations, but it was in Smallville, which didn't start until 2001. It was silver kryptonite, so they could not have been getting it here. This just feels like it was like trying to make him sound nerdier by adding extra information that a real nerd wouldn't say.
Yeah. Exactly. Right. It's technobabble. It's nerdobabble.
Yeah.
Exactly.
Yeah. Good little moral dilemma conversation that I feel like we always enjoy.
Yeah.
I don't even know what to say about it. Like, it's worth reading 8 times over. This whole book kicked ass.
Yeah.
Like, this book in particular. I know we say that every fucking book, but I would burn one of the other books to keep this book in the
I'm not sure which other book, but
I haven't picked yet, but I would figure it out. Yeah.
I can't wait for Axe to find out about the fucking quantum virus. I want to see his reaction so badly.
He's going to die inside.
Yeah.
He's going to die. He's already struggling with so much from book 8.
And they love to deploy that kind of stuff, so I'm really appreciating that they have not dropped that bomb in yet. I kind of feel like they should just use the oatmeal, though, right? Like I don't know why we're arguing about this.
I see what you mean. Although I do think it's interesting because, like, there is something about it where it's like, because it's oatmeal and it's not harmful to us, even though we know that it's harmful to them, like, it's hard to be like, well, come on, it's just oatmeal. Like, it's not really that bad, is it? Like,
here's the thing you might not be considering, Ed, is if Tom gets oatmealed, then he's perma-broken.
You can't get the yeark out.
Ever come back to being full Tom again. And I think that's sort of that's the actual dilemma. And also, I don't know why they think it's unethical. Like, it's unethical to strike the Yeerks, but doing so in this way, like, seems to also have implications for humans.
It dooms the controller that the Yeerk is in. And that's why hitting the Yeerk pool is such a great idea, because you hit them when they're not in a controller. Like, that's...
Oh, but then we're out of the ethical thing. You're right. No, I missed a step. Ah, damn it, I'm getting old.
It's still like, should we doom them to a life? Because the Yeerks won't die. They'll just be strung out and crazy forever. And is that kind? No.
Oh my God, it's like all those, like, people in Escape from New York where everybody, like, it's I don't know. I could imagine, like, a fanfic where it's like that does happen and they just all become like I don't know, a whole different force in the war.
Yeah.
Like, they're just like there for their own aims.
But here's my thing. There's 2 things that I think of. One is that they are 5, not even really teenagers, they're preteens, seemingly on their own, fighting against an army of, like, an already fairly successful, already very much underway invasion of their planet. Yep. I think they get to use the oatmeal, is how my first thought.
Yeah.
And then my other thought is that, oh no, talking about the first thought, I lost my second one.
Well, I have to say, I'm in your camp.
Yeah.
I think strategically, we have seen more situations where the Animorphs almost cease to exist than we have seen the Yeerks in a situation where their invasion ceases to exist. Yeah. So I think it's only fair that we get to make a little oatmeal.
Yeah.
And put some, I think we should also
when
get
life
some
gives you
blueberries
oatmeal,
on the way. You eat it.
You eat it.
Yeah.
You add a little hot water.
That's fiber, baby. That's good for you.
I also, is maple ginger a real flavor?
I've never heard of that.
It sounds made up, doesn't it?
I don't want those
It
together.
must be real.
I think they'd be okay in that maple is just sort of vaguely sweet and ginger is like warming.
It's gotta be a flavor. Hold
I've
on.
never heard of that.
All right, so I found. Oh no, this is on our Animorphs. And they're making fun of it. Learn the truth about instant maple oatmeal and the dangers. The meal truth. Maybe you've heard of it before. Oatmeal truth. It goes by many names, but it's all very instant maple and ginger. Sure, Big Oat wants you to believe that oatmeal is good for you, heart healthy, a nutritious breakfast as usually is, but not instant maple ginger. This must be a fan website.
This is not real, yeah.
Dude, do you know what the name of this website is?
What?
Are you ready? Oatmealtruth.org.
Yeah.
This is some of the best fucking fanfic.
That's the Andalite truth people again, probably.
They made shirts. This is incredible. I'm dropping this in the Discord right now. This is incredible.
I will also say Jake chooses to invoke the Civil War as a noble cause they're emulating, and I'm only gonna give him a pass because with an American public school middle school education, that is probably how he thinks the Civil War happened. But there's a really great quote though. When they realized 7 years ago, Tobias says, "We have to win." And Rachel, kind of laughs. And she says, "I laughed without any humor at all. I'm pretty gung-ho. Unlike Cassie, unlike Tobias perhaps, I'm ruthless at times. But even I have enough sense to know the words, 'we have to win,' are the first 4 steps on the road to hell." And I'm just like, what is happening? And can it happen all the time? Why do I have to do anything other than read this book? This is what I want to do all the time. This is so good.
Yeah, it's so good. And the fact that Rachel's here at this point and just in this moment of her dilemma, it's like, oh, man, it's so powerful. And it only gets better. I mean, all the shared, there's so many things that are about to happen in later parts of the book that are just truly amazing. I don't know. It's and the imagery and the consistency. It's just a killer book.
Yeah,
it's so good.
Should we jump to? I mean, I feel like we could technically talk about this chapter forever, but
yeah.
And I mean, I think now that we're sort of moving through things, we'll have more to talk about on a minisode.
Yeah,
sure. We'll have the War Crimes minisode.
Yeah, I mean, war crimes are hard to talk about. The thing is you gotta read this chapter. This book kicked so much ass. You should just pick it up out of nowhere and read this book. This is the episode of the podcast that we should be just start listening here. You'll want to read it.
Yeah.
Thanks for listening to Anidorks. We'll be back soon with lots more to say. Until the Andalites return, or at least until next time. See you soon!